2. J. M. Keynes, preacher of state monopoly capitalism, general crisis of capitalism. The crisis has exacerbated capitalist contradictions and exposed the system's flaws, especially when compared to the socialist system in the USSR. Capitalist contradictions. Previously, bourgeois economists would downplay capitalism's fundamental issues, but this became increasingly difficult during the crisis. Unemployment became a chronic and massive issue during the crisis, reaching unprecedented levels during the 1929 to 1933 economic downturn. Bourgeois economists' attempts to dismiss unemployment as a voluntary choice failed. USSR comparison. The USSR, with its growing socialist economy, eliminated unemployment, highlighting the inefficacy of capitalist economies in managing such issues. Economic crises. The crises of 1920 to 1921 and 1929 to 1933 led to declines in production, increased unemployment, and worsened capitalist contradictions, showcasing capitalism's inability to manage productive forces. League of Nations report acknowledged the shock of mass unemployment and unsold goods amidst widespread need and deprivation in capitalist countries. USSR's economic growth. In contrast to capitalist countries, the USSR's economy grew steadily without crises of overproduction, revealing the deceptions of bourgeois economists. Keynesianism emergence. John Maynard Keynes' work, particularly The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, 1935, became influential, responding to capitalism's crisis with ideas for reform within the capitalist system. Critique of classical economics. Keynes criticized classical economic theories, acknowledging capitalism's flaws but arguing they could be addressed without abandoning capitalism. Psychological laws. Keynes replaced economic laws with psychological laws, such as the propensity to consume and invest, blaming unemployment on people's psychology rather than capitalism itself. Capital accumulation and inequality. Keynes argued that as wealth grows, so do unemployment and inequality, but attributed this to human psychology rather than systemic flaws in capitalism. Socialist system success. The text contrasts the USSR's success, with no unemployment and rising living standards, against capitalist failures, refuting Keynes' claims of universal economic laws. Keynes' basic psychological law. Keynes argues that in capitalist societies, people tend to increase their consumption and savings as their incomes grow. However, this law is criticized for not applying to the working class, who face relative and absolute impoverishment under capitalism, limiting their consumption and saving ability. Blaming workers for unemployment. Keynes shifts the responsibility for unemployment from capitalism to workers, implying that their failure to spend all their income on consumer goods leads to deferred demand, contributing to unemployment. Investment versus saving. Keynes notes that people demand a reward greater than interest to invest their savings, linking investment to future profit calculations influenced by interest rates and expected profits. Calculations for the future. Keynes emphasizes the importance of future calculations for investments, noting that under capitalism, these are based on uncertain and arbitrary factors, primarily the mood of entrepreneurs. Mood of entrepreneurs. Keynes argues that investment and economic prosperity are heavily influenced by the optimism or pessimism of entrepreneurs, which is not necessarily based on rational calculation but rather on spontaneous emotions. Need for a favorable environment. Keynes suggests that maintaining a positive atmosphere for entrepreneurs is crucial, advocating for measures that please capitalists, such as reducing worker unrest and creating firm order, even at the expense of worker exploitation. State intervention. During capitalism's general crisis, state intervention becomes more critical to support the interests of the financial oligarchy and maintain economic order. Interest rates and investment. Keynes identifies interest rates as a significant factor influencing investment decisions. High interest rates can hinder investment by setting narrow boundaries for it, contributing to a gap in aggregate demand and leading to unemployment. Historical context. Keynes references post-World War I England and the United States to illustrate how high interest rates and inadequate investment hindered economic recovery and employment. Regulating interest rates. Keynes argues for the need to consciously regulate interest rates in the public interest. He suggests that a wise government should lower interest rates, using laws, customs, and morality to encourage investment, reduce unemployment, and eliminate undesirable aspects of capitalism. Gradual disappearance of rentiers. Keynes believes that lowering interest rates would lead to a gradual and painless decline of rentiers, those who earn income from investments, allowing entrepreneurship to thrive and investments to grow without requiring a revolution. Critique of Keynes' approach. The critique points out that throughout capitalism's history, especially during crises, interest rates have naturally declined without leading to the promised improvements. Instead, unemployment has increased, and rentiers have not disappeared. This suggests that the problem lies not with high interest rates but with insufficient investment opportunities. Doubts about monetary policy. Keynes himself expresses skepticism about the effectiveness of regulating interest rates as a standalone solution for capitalism's problems, leading him to focus more on state regulation of economic life. State regulation and investment. Keynes proposes that the state should take increasing responsibility for organizing investments, a process he calls socialization of investment. This involves the government making capital investments, often funded by increased taxes on workers' incomes. Impact on workers. The critique argues that this socialization of investment enriches monopolies by raising the tax burden on workers, decreasing their real wages. Keynes advocates for maintaining stable money wages while reducing real wages through higher prices and taxes, linking employment growth to decreased real wages for workers. Wage policy and price indices. Keynes supports policies to freeze wages and suggests manipulating cost-of-living indices to justify not increasing wages. This policy, widely used in capitalist countries, effectively reduces workers' living standards during rising prices. State investment and monopolies. The critique highlights that state investment under capitalism primarily serves the interests of monopolies rather than the masses. It is often directed towards military spending, benefiting the financial oligarchy, and does not effectively eliminate unemployment. Unemployment and the capitalist system. Despite significant government investments, unemployment persists, indicating that its root cause lies in the capitalist system itself, not merely the level of investment or entrepreneurial sentiment. Keynes on unemployment. Keynes attributes unemployment to a lack of effective demand and investment, suggesting that these can be addressed within capitalism. However, the text argues that unemployment is an intrinsic feature of capitalism, serving as a tool for capital to pressure workers and reduce wages. Chronic underutilization of capital. The text critiques Keynes's focus on insufficient investment by pointing to the chronic underutilization of fixed capital during capitalism's crises, highlighting that both capital and labor are not fully utilized under capitalism. Consumption regulation. Keynes proposes regulating both investment and the propensity to consume to maintain full employment. This approach is criticized for focusing on increasing unproductive consumption by the ruling classes rather than improving workers' consumption. Unproductive consumption. Keynes is critiqued for valuing unproductive consumption, e.g., wars, construction of pyramids, as a means to boost demand. He suggests that such consumption is necessary to prolong capitalism, reflecting the interests of monopolists. State monopoly capitalism. Keynes's ideas are seen as supporting state monopoly capitalism, where the state regulates economic life to benefit monopolies. This involves increasing taxes on workers and directing investments towards military spending. Wages and prices. Keynes's recommendations for regulating consumption involve wage freezes and rising prices, which reduce real wages for workers while benefiting monopolies through increased profits from military contracts. Post-war implementation. After World War II, Keynes's ideas were implemented in the US and UK, leading to state regulation favoring monopolies, increased taxation of the masses, and economic policies that benefit the ruling classes. Critique of Keynesianism. The text argues that Keynesianism supports imperialist reaction and war, with demagogic promises of eliminating crises and unemployment under capitalism. Instead, it leads to greater monopoly dominance and exacerbates capitalism's contradictions. Progressive rejection. The reactionary nature of Keynes's theories becomes evident as the contradictions of capitalism intensify, leading progressive forces to reject Keynesianism in favor of struggles for peace, democracy, and socialism.